Boris Jeremiah O'Boney, you are charged with living on immoral earnings, in that on the 3rd day of July, 1982, and on other days between that date and the 7th of August, 1982, you knowingly lived wholly or in part on the earnings of the prostitution of Janice Smith, contrary to Section 30 of the Sexual Offences Act, 1956. Are you guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
I call Thomas Crichton.
The case you are about to see is a fictional one, but the procedure is authentic. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the general public.
Call Thomas Crichton.
Have you got the time?
10:34.
Wrong answer.
Certainly is not.
I've got the time, if you've got the money.
You are Thomas Edward Crichton,
I am.
and you live at 59 Richmond Road, Fulchester.
That's correct.
And what do you do for a living, Mr. Crichton?
I'm retired, sir. Pensioner.
And do you have any income apart from your pension, Mr. Crichton?
Yes, sir. I own number 52 as well. It's let out.
You are the landlord of 52 Richmond Road.
Yes, sir. I got it after the war. My dad died, you see, left it to me. My mother had gone on before, and me and the missus had just put the deposit on number 59 to be near me dad, and then he died. Yeah. Aunt.
I beg your pardon?
Aunt.
And who are your tenants at number 52?
Well, sir, it's split into 2 flats nowadays. I put in the extra toilet and kitchenette in March 1977, when the Birkinshaws got their council house.
Who are your tenants now, Mr. Crichton?
Well, not the Birkinshaws, my lordship.
No. Your tenants now. Stick to the point, please, otherwise we shall be here all the week.
I thought it was important to say how happy I was with the Birkinshaws, to show us how it's all different now with this lot.
Yes, well, the most important thing for you, Mr. Crichton, is to give your evidence simply and clearly, and in that way we won't be wasting public money on idle reminiscing, will we?
Right, sir. Shall I start again, then?
No, just tell us who your tenants are at the moment, Mr. Crichton.
Mr. Harley and Miss Smith, sir.
And which flats do they inhabit?
52A and 52B.
Who inhabits 52A?
Mr. Harley.
And Miss Smith inhabits 52B.
Correct, sir.
Does Miss Smith live alone?
No, sir.
Who does she live with?
Bloke over there, sir.
Which particular bloke are you referring to?
That one there, sir.
Well, perhaps you would care to point him out to us, Mr. Crichton.
The accused, then, lives with Miss Smith at 52B. Is that correct, Mr. Crichton?
Mr. Crichton, we seem to have gone from one extreme to the other. Keeping to the point does not mean taking a vow of silence. It means keeping to the point. And as for you, Mr. Warwick, how do you expect a witness to answer a question if you haven't asked one?
Yes, Your Honour.
We don't seem to have achieved very much so far this morning, now do we? Shall we all try and do a little better?
Your Honour. Now, Mr. Crichton, what is the relationship between 52A and 52B? What is the physical relationship between the 2 flats? So, Miss Smith's flat is directly above Mr. Harley's.
That's right, sir.
And whose name is on the rent book?
Miss Janice Elizabeth Smith.
And how is the rent paid?
Monthly, sir.
Is
I
it
go
paid-
round the first Monday of every month to collect it.
Is it paid by cash or by cheque?
Cash, sir. And I'll give them a receipt and enter it in the rent book.
You say you give them a receipt. Who do you mean by them?
Her and him. Miss Smith and the pimp.
Really, Your Honour?
Yes, Miss Miles. Mr. Crichton, you must not pass judgment on people from the witness box, please. Members of the jury, you must take that word out of your heads, please. Carry on, Mr. Warwick.
Your Honour. Mr. Crichton, did anyone other than the tenant, Miss Janice Smith, ever pay the rent on 52B?
Well, no. She was always the one that actually handed it to me.
So what led you to believe that they were living together?
He was always there, day and night. Had his own key made and everything. Every time I called in, there he was sitting around with his feet up, making himself well at home. Once when I called in and the kettle was on, he even offered to make me a cuppa. He was living there all right. Answered the door sometimes, bold as brass.
Now, Mr. Crichton, from your house at number 59 Richmond Road, can you see the entrance to number 52?
Oh, yes, sir. It's straight across and down too. And the street bends there, so I've got a good view from my lounge across to the entrance. I'm well able to keep an eye on it.
And do you keep an eye on it?
See, it's my investment, that, sir. All I've got is that and the pension. It was always for my old age. I never had much of a chance to put anything by it. It was always there, like for when I needed it.
Yes,
And now that I need it, it's a millstone round me neck. More trouble than it's worth. I'll lie awake at night worrying about the goings-on over there, and I've got my other tenant to think about.
Now, what kind of things have you seen from your vantage point in observing number 52?
Men, sir. Men coming and going all hours of the day and night. Mainly day, though. She, Miss Smith, goes off down the road, then a few minutes later, she comes back with a fella. They go in, then half an hour later, sometimes less, he'll be out again, off down the street. Then she'll come out, toddle off again, come back with another one. 5 or 6 men a day go in that place on a good day. I mean, sometimes. And it's not unknown for him to bring them along neither.
Now, how many times a day does Mr. O'Boney enter the house with other men?
Oh, it varies. Sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. Sometimes not at all one day. Then a couple the next. You know, it varies like.
What makes them different from the normal flow of visitors to a house?
There's more of them.
Perhaps they have more friends than most people.
I thought you were on our side. I thought you were in charge of trying to get him put away.
Mr. Crichton, Mr. Warwick is a prosecuting counsel, and in his own inimitable way, he's trying to get you to substantiate what, at the moment, are simply your unfounded suspicions. Now, you would help by giving longer answers.
Well, he's going about it in a wrong way. Look, these blokes go in and out of that flat like a dose of salts. There's some regulars, but most of them are strangers. She takes them in, or he takes them in. But like as not, they leave by themselves. And it's always one by one. They never come in a group. I mean, if they was friends, they'd come together sometimes, wouldn't they? And they fasten their coats up when they leave. What more proof do you want?
Mr. Warwick.
Oh, sorry, Your Honour. There's no further questions for this witness, Your Honour.
Mr. Crichton, when did Miss Smith move into your flat at number 52B?
1980. August 1980.
And did she start having the volume of visitors you described straight away?
Well, not so you'd notice. It built up, fairly gradual.
Were you observing the house constantly from the time that she moved in?
No, not really. Didn't have the need to.
When did you begin to observe it regularly?
Well, Mr. Harley first mentioned it was suspicious about 6 months after they moved in. I started to keep an eye on it then, I suppose. He's a good tenant, Mr. Harley. I wouldn't like to upset him.
Apart from the visitors, were you happy with her as a tenant on the whole?
No.
Why not?
She's noisy.
Noisy?
She plays that pop music day and night, up till all hours, lights on till past 1 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Harley needs his sleep. He does an important job.
Has she ever contravened the terms of the lease in any way?
That's the problem, innit? Once they're in, you can't get them out. When I do get her out and I write that lease again, I'm going back to that smart Alec at the law centre and I'm going to say to him, you missed out the main thing, mate, and I want it in from now on. What we need is another clause in that contract, another clause that says you're not allowed to run a knocking shop in my house. Not in my house, you're not.
Will you describe to us some of the problems you've encountered with your upstairs neighbours, Mr. Harley?
Would you like the points in chronological order or on a scale of inconveniences caused?
Whichever way you prefer, Mr. Harley. You tell the story in your own way.
Yes, but you will bear in mind, Mr. Harley, won't you, that this is not a charge under the Rent Act?
Certainly, Your Honour. Rest assured, I shall confine myself to matters of the utmost relevance to the case before us.
The case is before the jury and myself, Mr. Harley, not before you.
To operate effectively in the security business, one needs 3 attributes. 1, remarkable powers of perception and observation. 2, attention to detail, to back these up. And 3, instinct. Instinct is what separates your average security person from the expert. To succeed in this highly competitive field, one must be alert to the highest degree. One's senses are fully developed, one's body in tip-top condition. Not only ready for that sudden, unexpected attack which comes out of nowhere, but also aware from day to day from where that attack might come. One begins to be able to spot a potential troublemaker a mile away, simply by the way one's own well-tuned senses react.
Your
Indeed,
Honour.
I would go...
Just a minute, now, just a minute.
I fail to see where this is leading us, Your
Yes,
Honour.
I agree with you, Miss Miles. Now, are you leading to anything in particular, Mr. Harley, or is this an advertisement for Security Corps?
Your Honour, if you'll permit me, what I am doing is shortening the proceedings. Were I to present my evidence without explaining my particular aptitudes and training, it would be worth no more than any other man's. But by explaining my status as a trained observer, I am merely preempting the questions on behalf of the barrister, designed to elicit the information I have just imparted. to back up my evidence, you
Yes,
see.
well, I prefer the normal form of question and answer.
Very well, Your Honour, just as you wish.
Thank you. Mr. Warwick,
Your Honour. Mr. Harley, when were your suspicions first roused about the occupants of number 52B?
Well, from the beginning, I decided to keep them under observation. One can't be too careful these days. A lot of potential saboteurs about, and the nature of my job being what it is, I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to give details. Until they were proved to be otherwise, I decided to keep a watchful eye on them.
And what did you discover?
Well, the first thing was the bed.
the bed.
The bed, Your Honour. Second-hand, what some people would call antique, I've no doubt. Iron frame, old-fashioned springing, the type that creaks.
Yes, but you've already told us that Miss Smith's bedroom is above your living room, Mr. Harley, so the creakings of the bed springs would hardly disturb you, would it?
No, sir, not in the normal course of events. Not with people who use the bed by night. That's true, right enough. But from the beginning, the creakings tended to take place throughout the daytime, loud enough to obtrude over Radio 4.
And how often did the bed springs creak throughout the day in the period we're discussing, July and August of last year?
It worked out at an average of 3.5 times per day over the period in question.
3.5? What on earth is 0.5?
That is the average figure, sir, gained by adding together the number of creakings throughout the period and dividing the total by the number of days in that period. Of course, some days were busier than others. Weekends tended to be quieter than weekdays.
And did the creakings tend to be at regular times throughout the day?
Well, an analysis of the figures, sir, indicates a preference for the early afternoon, around 1500 hours when the pubs close. There were fewer in the morning, except first thing.
And were the creakings associated with any other particular activity in the flat?
They were associated, sir, with the comings and goings of, well, I can hardly call them gentlemen, visitors of the male gender. I would hear the front door open. The partitioning downstairs is not of premium quality, I'm afraid. And then the sets of footsteps going up the stairs, and some 8 to 10 minutes later, the creakings would commence.
And you could hear all this over Radio 4.
I had the foresight to turn the radio off, Your Honour.
May we proceed now to the events of July the 3rd, 1982?
Certainly, sir, if you feel you now have enough of the background.
Yes, I think so. Thank you, Mr. Harley. What happened on July the 3rd?
Well, sir, due to operational reorganisation stemming from head office, I had commenced on FRH system. Flexible rostered hours, sir.
Thank you.
This meant that I was occasionally required to work through the night, and in particular on the night of July the 3rd. As I was returning to my dwelling on the morning of July the 4th, at about 09:10 hours, I became aware that my front door alarm had been activated.
So when you heard the alarm, what did you do?
I proceeded with caution up the front path, and in one movement opened the door and hurled myself in the hallway at ankle height.
At ankle height.
Yes, sir. The door is triple locked in addition to the alarm system, and so it was unlikely that the intruder would have had time to actually penetrate into the premises. Therefore, it was logical that he would still be in the hall endeavouring to gain admittance, and this indeed proved to be the case.
And who did you discover in the hallway?
The defendant and Miss Smith, sir.
Now, where were they standing in relation to the front door?
They were standing on the second step of their own staircase. Their own front door was open.
So you missed them.
I beg your pardon, sir?
With your rugby tackle, you missed them.
In a manner of speaking, sir.
How did the defendant and Miss Smith react to your entrance?
In their usual manner, sir. They laughed.
What happened next?
I cautioned them to remain where they were while I deactivated the alarm, and I informed them that it was connected to the local police station and that the arrival of the police was imminent.
How did they respond?
They seemed to find it amusing. It seems to be their attitude to most things. They have what I can only describe as a frivolous attitude to life. Anyway, I deactivated the alarm by going inside the door, and the point is, when I came out, they had gone.
So what did you do?
Their front door was open, so I proceeded up their stairs.
Well, then what happened?
When I emerged at the top of the staircase and hesitated, uncertain of which room to enter, Mr. O'Bone emerged from what I assumed to be the living room for me.
And did he...
He was looking at me as he spoke, but his actual words were, "Look, Janice, an early customer."
An customer. And what did you understand that to mean?
It confirmed what I already knew, sir, that she was offering her body for immoral purposes in exchange for money, and he was aiding and abetting.
And how did you react to what he said?
I ignored it and came straight to the point. I said, look here, I have reason to believe you were trying to gain admittance to my premises. What do you have to say for yourself?
And how did he respond?
He said, it's not like that at all, man. Come and have a drink. I should remind you that this was approximately 9:22 hours.
Did you accept the invitation?
Certainly not. I reiterated my demand for an explanation of their behavior.
And what was the explanation?
Well, sir, Miss Smith then emerged and claimed that she had accidentally knocked against my door with her bag, thus activating the alarm. She then asked if I would like a cup of tea to calm me down. I replied that my calm was perfectly intact and that I was not satisfied with their explanation and would report the matter to the police.
And what happened then?
Mr. O'Bone attempted to put his hand on my shoulder. My reactions being much sharper than his, I avoided the contact. He then said, come in and lie down, and Janice will give you a massage. She is an expert at massage. You'll like it, and it won't cost you a penny. This one's on me.
What did you do?
I withdrew immediately to my premises.
Now, was there any doubt in your own mind as to what was on offer in 52B?
Not a shred of doubt, sir. It was identical in tone and content to offers that have been made to me in the past on the streets of Hong Kong, Amsterdam, West Berlin, and Soho. I had no doubt in my mind as to what was going on up there, and that is what I told the police when they later arrived, and that is what has led to this prosecution.
Thank you, Mr. Harley. I have no further questions.
Mr. Harley, I'd like to hear more about your flexible rostered hours. What exactly does that mean?
In order to maintain the level of security coverage at any one time, and to prevent a drop in the level of alertness due to overfamiliarity with one's operational partner, every operator now works a completely different range of hours per week. To foil any attempted sabotage, these hours are rotated in a random computerized manner and are only announced in the middle of the preceding week, hence the flexibility factor.
In other words, you work shifts.
No. I work flexible, rostered hours, which vary from week to week.
Well, however you care to name it, is not the end result that you work different hours every week, and sometimes those hours are through the night?
Sometimes, yes.
When did this system come into operation?
May 1982.
And how many night shifts did you work between May and July 1982?
I worked for 5 days from 8 till 4, 2 days off, 5 days from 4 till midnight, 2 days off, and 5 days from midnight until 8 a.m., 2 days off, and then the cycle was repeated.
How long does it take you to travel to your work?
Between 35 and 45 minutes, madam, depending on public transport. Less, of course, when working at unsocial hours, when my company provides me with a subsidized travel aid.
A what?
A minibus. It returns operators who finish at the same time to their respective homes in Fulchester.
So, Mr. Harley, allowing for your travelling time to and from your work and presumably time spent on things like shopping, laundrette and such like, plus, of course, the necessity of sleep, it doesn't seem to me that you would have too much time left for keeping an eye on your neighbours, does it?
I had ample time, I assure you.
But for 2 weeks out of 3, you wouldn't even have been there in the afternoons when you claim these bed springs squeak so regularly. And the other week was presumably spent in catching up on your sleep when you were working nights.
I had ample time to determine what was going on up there.
Your bedroom is immediately underneath Miss Smith's living room, is it not?
Yes.
So the squeaks that you hear could well be coming from her sofa.
I do hear the squeaks from my living room, which is below her bedroom. From my bedroom, all I can hear is their noisy toing and froing and their shouting from room to room. However, I do not need as much sleep as most people seem to assume is necessary. I have trained myself to exist on the minimum. Consequently, I am often in my living room in the afternoon, whether I am working at night or not. And I am well able to hear all the comings and goings, the footsteps up the stairs, followed by the creaking bed springs, and finally by a man leaving the premises.
Can we now turn to the occasion on which you allege you were propositioned by Mr. O'Bone and Miss Smith?
We can, yes.
Very well. Do you accept Miss Smith's explanation as to how she accidentally activated your alarm?
I prefer to keep an open mind.
Is that system still in use?
Actually, no.
Why is that?
Oh, I change my systems frequently. You see, I have access to specialist magazines and can keep abreast of the latest developments. Consequently, I have a new system which renders the previous one obsolete.
Is that perhaps because it's not quite so sensitive to the accidental touch of a handbag?
Partly, yes.
You see, Mr. Harley, my client will testify that your old burglar alarm would regularly go off if the wind was in the wrong direction and that you were constantly having to deactivate it.
Now, that's an exaggeration.
Puts a different light on which flat was the most noisy, though, doesn't it?
But that's hardly the question at issue, is it?
No, indeed. The question at issue is whether you were so predisposed to dislike your neighbors and their different lifestyle that you leapt to conclusions about every aspect of their lives. That is the case, is it not?
Certainly not. I am a methodical man. I do not jump to conclusions. I arrive at a logical assessment based on the facts available. I am not a hasty man.
Would you agree that you don't share the same attitudes as the tenants of 52B, the same assumptions?
That is very true. Very true.
So what you mean by a massage is not necessarily what they mean by a massage.
Pardon?
What do you think the invitation to have a massage means?
When it's offered in the way that they offer it, it can mean only one thing.
What thing?
It is a term used by prostitutes, madam. It is an invitation to partake of their services.
Every time?
In my experience, yes.
Are you experienced in these matters, Mr. Harley?
Madam, that is
Your
an
Honour,
outrageous
This
suggestion.
line of questioning seems to me to be irrelevant and offensive.
If Mr. Harley seeks to justify his claim that an invitation to a massage was more than a simple invitation to a massage by citing his own experience, then I think Miss Miles is entitled to question him about it, Mr. Warwick.
So, Mr. Harley, you have been invited to have a massage before, have you?
In certain foreign countries, yes.
And what leads you to the conclusion that these invitations were more than what they seemed? Mr. Harley.
Well, the obvious character of the girls, for a start.
Can you expand on that?
Well, the streets they were in. Notorious areas, red light districts. Well, everyone knows how. I mean, it's just obvious.
But if you didn't accept these invitations, how could you possibly know for certain that a massage was not all that was involved?
On the odd occasion, in foreign countries, I did. So I know. Well, it's not a crime, is it?
No, Mr. Harley. It's not a crime. It's not against the law to sleep with a prostitute.
Well then, so I do know what it means.
And what it means on the streets of, say, Amsterdam, in the red light district, is the same as what it means at the top of the stairs of 52 Richmond Road, Forchester.
Precisely.
Did it ever occur to you, Mr. Harley, that Mr. Boney and Miss Smith were pulling your leg, having you on?
It did not.
Or, in fact, that Miss Smith is indeed expert at giving a relaxing massage which has nothing whatever to do with sexual activity?
No.
Or that a perfectly innocent offer was made to you which you interpreted according to the lights of your own experience?
No.
If any woman at whatever kind of gathering, sitting at a cocktail party, a church social, or some other unlikely place, said to you that she was experiencing giving a massage, would you immediately assume that she was a prostitute?
I certainly would.
Thank you, Mr. Harley. I have no further questions.
The case of the Queen versus Maurice O'Boney will continue in court tomorrow. The case you are about to see is fictional, but the procedure is authentic. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the public.
Why don't you sit down for a minute, Edward? The judge isn't in yet.
Amazing, isn't it? How much a uniform does for a man, and how little it does for a woman.
Calling Edward Fairbrother.
Your name? 'Cause I don't know. 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 'Cause
Police Cadet Edward Fairbrother.
And you live at...
My home is at 27 Salisbury Road, Fulchester. At the moment, I'm on a residential course at Fulchester Police Academy.
And how long have you been a member of the police force?
Since leaving school last Easter, sir.
Would you like to tell the court how you come to be involved in a court case so early in your career?
Yes, sir. See, I live in Salisbury Road. I know I've just said that, but Salisbury Road is 2 streets away from Richmond Road, and the Salisbury is the local for that area. My father's a regular there, and he introduced me to the pub on my 18th birthday, and it became my regular with my mates, friends, and we'd pop in of an evening once or twice a week when I'm home weekends and on leave.
Yes, go on.
Well, it's also the regular for the accused, sir, and his Miss Smith, and I'd see them in there sometimes.
Were you acquainted with Mr. Oboni and Miss Smith?
No, sir, not before. However, on the evening of July the 4th, I was in the aforementioned pub at approximately 9 p.m.
And what incident...
No, sorry, I was there from approximately 7:30 p.m. until approximately 10:30 p.m., but the incident in question took place at approximately 9 p.m.
And what incident was that?
Well, I was standing at the bar with my friends, and I became aware that Miss Smith kept smiling at me and staring, acting as if she knew me, which she didn't. But it was very obvious. Her interest in me was pointed out by my friends who thought that I knew her.
And where was Miss Smith in relation to the bar?
She was sitting at a table with Mr. Oboni, approximately 10 feet from the bar. She was facing in my direction, and he had his back to me.
Did you respond to Miss Smith's attention?
No, sir. But the accused, Mr. Oboni, turned round to see who she was smiling at. And then they said something to each other which I couldn't hear. And then he got up and went to the toilet.
And what did you do?
Well, nothing, sir. I ignored Miss Smith and continued talking to my friends.
And then what happened?
Well, Mr. Oboni came back, and they talked and laughed, looking at me as though they were talking about me.
Did you respond?
No, I didn't, but Mr. Oboni beckoned me over to them, and I went over to the table where they were sitting, and he said to me, "Janice has taken quite a shine to you." I said, "Oh, yes." He said, "Yes, what are you going to do about it?"
And what happened next?
Well, Miss Smith said, "Stop it, Morris, you're embarrassing him," and then she got up and went to the toilet. And then he told me that I could have a discount rate because I was under 21.
Now, was any specific sum of money mentioned?
Yes, £10. He said the normal rate was £25.
£25? That's quite a generous discount.
Yes, but that I could have her for £10.
Now, you are quite certain that the £10 was for the services of Miss Janice Smith?
Yes, sir, no doubt about that.
Did you accept the offer?
No, of course I didn't. In fact, I informed him that I was a police cadet.
And how did he respond to that?
He said, "Oh, that's terrific, a good steady job with prospects." It didn't seem to put him off at all, actually. He found it a bit of a joke.
Yes, and was Miss Smith absent for the whole of this conversation?
Up to that point, yes. And then she came back, and he told her that I was a police cadet and that I fancied her. That's what he said. I mean, I hadn't said that at all. But she said, "Oh, I've never had a police cadet before, only a chief superintendent." I didn't believe her, obviously, and I told her so.
Well, can you remember the actual words that you used?
Yes, I said that I thought it was highly unlikely that a chief superintendent would pay for it.
Mr. Fairbrother, why were you in the Salisbury on the evening of July the 4th?
Well, it's my local. I was with my friends.
Just an ordinary evening out, no special occasion?
Oh, yes, Billy, one of my friends, was getting married the next day.
So it was a stag night?
Well, yes, you know, cheer him on his way.
Was it a happy occasion?
Pardon?
Well, were you having fun? Laughs? Champagne?
Oh, no, not champagne. Black and tans.
Black and what?
Black and tans, Your Honour. It's Guinness and light ale.
Oh, really?
How many black and tans do you think you'd had by 9 o'clock?
2 or 3. I'm not one to go mad.
So you were just relaxed, yes? A little merry, perhaps?
A bit.
What were you chatting about with your mates?
Janice, Miss Smith. You know, they found it a bit funny, her making eyes at me and that. I can't remember every word they said.
But you do seem to remember every single word that Mr. Oboni and Miss Smith said. Why is that?
Well, that was different. It shocked me. It just stuck in my memory.
But you said that to your friends it was just a bit of fun.
That's right.
But, Mr. Fairbrother, that's all it was to Mr. Oboni and Miss Smith. Just a bit of fun. I wonder why you were the only person who took it seriously.
I wasn't the only
I also wonder why you got the order of the conversation mixed up. Mr. Aboney will tell us that you made it quite clear that you were a police cadet long before any conversation about you fancying Miss Smith.
Oh, that's not right. It was about her fancying me.
But if you did tell Mr. Aboney that you were connected with the police force before any conversation about you and Miss Smith, it does put a different complexion on the conversation as a whole, doesn't it?
I don't see how.
It makes it far more likely that they were having a joke at your expense, doesn't it?
Police Constable 317, Winifred Jones, Fulchester Constabulary.
WPC Jones, will you describe to us the events of the 4th of July, 1982?
Certainly. May I refer to my notebook? The notes were taken at the time, Your Honour.
Yes, go ahead.
At approximately 10 a.m. on July the 4th, I was asked by my superior officer to observe number 52 Richmond Road and to make a note of the comings and goings of the occupants and any visitors. This was obviously a plainclothes assignment. I observed the house from approximately 10:30 a.m. onwards.
Was this observation prompted by anything in particular?
It was the result of a complaint from the landlord of the premises, I believe, Your Honour.
Oh, I see. Right. Go on.
Shortly after I began observing the house, Mr. Harley, the tenant of the ground floor flat of the premises, came across the street and made himself known to me. He also acquainted me with the situation upstairs as he understood it. At 11:05 a.m., Mr. Aboney, the accused, left the house and proceeded down the street in the direction of Tesco's, returning at 11:25 with a companion, a middle-aged man of smart appearance, approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall, dark-haired, clean-shaven. They entered the house together, and the visitor departed again at 11:50 a.m. At 12:15, Mr. Aboney, the accused, and a woman I later ascertained to be Miss Smith, left the house and proceeded down the street in the same direction.
Towards Tesco's?
Yes, Your Honour. They returned at 2:45 with another man. This one was black, approximately 6 feet tall, dressed in casual clothes and carrying a leather satchel-type bag. The three entered the house together, and the man left at 3:30 and proceeded down the street in the opposite direction towards the gasworks. At 3:45, Miss Smith left the house alone, returning at 4 p.m. with 4 long pieces of wood and a rolled-up parcel. At 4:15, Mr. Aboney left the house, returning at 4:45 p.m. with another gentleman. This one was fair-haired, with a moustache and balding, approximately 5 feet 9 inches tall and wearing a dark suit. He stayed in the house until 5:30, when all three left together, again proceeding in the Tesco direction. I maintained observance until 6:30, during which time they did not return.
Did you ascertain the identities of these men, WPC Jones?
No, Your Honour. My brief was simply to observe the house and report.
Well, has anyone ascertained the identities of these men?
Not to my knowledge, Your Honour.
Well, why not?
Your Honour.
Just a minute, Miss Miles.
These persons were not suspected of having committed a crime, Your Honour.
Yes, but I would have thought they could have well have been material witnesses.
If Your Honour would look
Now,
at
just
this...
a minute, Miss Miles. You'll have a chance to speak in a minute. Why didn't the police think it material to follow up these men?
It is always a problem in cases like this, Your Honour, to persuade clients to testify, even if they haven't broken the law.
Yes.
The embarrassment caused to their families.
Yes, I understand all that, but I'm still surprised that nobody even tried.
Your Honour, the defence will be calling one of these men later in the proceedings.
Then why didn't you say so before, Miss Miles? Now we can get on with it, can't we? Continue your cross-examination, Miss Miles.
Actually, Your Honour, I'm still conducting my examination in chief.
Well, get on with it then.
Certainly, Your Honour. WPC Jones, you say you ceased your surveillance at 6:30 p.m. Was that the sum total of your involvement in this case?
No, sir. I returned to my station and typed up my report. As I was going off duty, the sergeant informed me that he had reason to believe that Mr. Aboney and Miss Smith might well be drinking in the Salisbury public house, and I agreed to check on that later in the evening.
And what time did you, in fact, arrive at the Salisbury?
At 8:45. I positioned myself at a table from where I would have a clear view of Mr. Aboney and Miss Smith. I ascertained that they were both drinking shorts and that Miss Smith was paying for them. either directly at the bar or occasionally giving money to Mr. Oboni to go to the bar to buy the drinks.
You saw money changing hands.
Twice during the evening, sir. Miss Smith gave Mr. Oboni a £5 note at one point and £2 notes at another. He never used his own money at all during the time I was there.
Did you observe any other unusual occurrence during the time that you were there?
Shortly after 9 p.m., I witnessed a conversation between Mr. Oboni and a young man I now know to be Police Cadet Fairbrother.
And were you close enough to overhear this conversation between Mr. Oboni and Police Cadet Fairbrother?
No, sir. But it was obvious that Mr. Oboni and Miss Smith were laughing and joking with Mr. Fairbrother, and that he was not in accord with their mood.
How do you mean, not in accord with their mood?
He looked embarrassed by the conversation.
Did you speak to anyone during the course of the evening?
Yes, I waited until Mr. Oboni and Miss Smith left the pub at approximately 10:15, and then I approached Mr. Fairbrother and asked him about the conversation. I made myself known to him, and he told me what had passed between them.
Thank you, W.P.C. Jones. I have no further questions.
W.P.C. Jones, how was Mr. Fairbrother when you spoke to him?
He was embarrassed by the incident.
And how was he in himself? Was he coherent?
Quite coherent.
Drunk?
Not in my opinion, no.
Not in your opinion. How about anyone else's opinion?
I can't speak for anyone else.
I put it to you, W.P.C. Jones, that by that time, far from being coherent, Police Cadet Fairbrother was so intoxicated that 5 minutes after your conversation with him, he was evicted from the premises by the landlord along with his friends, and that you yourself had to escort him home. Is that correct?
Yes.
Please, Mrs. O'Rourke, are you able to continue now? I'll repeat the question. What do you do for a living?
Me? Nothing. I've the husband and 4 children to see to.
But do you do any paid work outside the home?
I've no job. How could I have a job with the kiddies? And Patrick's got the arthritis. There's whole weeks when he can't work at all. And you get nothing off the sick.
Well, let me put it this way. Do you know the defendant?
Who?
The defendant, Mr. Oboni.
Oh, yes, I do.
How do you know him?
He's a friend of mine.
How do you come to know him?
Oh, they're lovely people, they are. You can always have a laugh with them, you know.
Mrs. O'Rourke, we are trying to ascertain what your connection is with the defendant.
Yes, that's right. I'm telling you.
Well, tell us what your relationship is with him.
We're not related. Well, we couldn't be, could we, with him being from Africa and that? Well, his mammy and daddy were, but he was born here, you know, in Fulchester. He's English. He's more English than me when you come to think about it.
Well, how long have you known him?
About a year, I think. But I wouldn't normally talk to any of them, you know. I don't know any darkies apart from the lot on the 6th floor with all the children. One of them plays with my Maureen. She's got them African ringlets with the beads in. They stay in for weeks, you know. But she's very clean. Very clean.
May we return to Mr. Oboni, Mrs. O'Rourke?
Oh, yes. He's a lovely lad, isn't he? Immaculate.
Do you know him well enough to go into his home?
Oh, yes. I'm not prejudiced. Not at all.
And what do you do when you go into Mr. Oboni's flat?
Will this take long yet? I only have a lot to do.
How long it will take, Mrs. O'Rourke, will depend upon your cooperation. But at the moment, we don't seem to be getting any, do we?
I could give you a list.
A list?
Names.
What names of whom?
Names, you know.
No, I don't know.
I know, that's the point.
What are you talking about?
A list of names.
What? Names of people you've seen in Mr. Oboni's flat?
No, you're not listening.
I do assure you that I am listening.
But you're not getting it.
What, the list?
The point.
No, I most certainly am not.
Look, there's plenty, and I mean plenty, as should be in that dock without picking on Morris. I am in a position to give you a few names from down our way, if that'd help at all.
Look, Mrs. O'Rourke, this court is not interested in names from down your way. We are concerned with the case before us and nothing else. So could you please stick to the questions and answer them as fully and as comprehensively as you can?
I would have thought you'd at least take a few down. I mean, it's more work for you, isn't it? There's them that's got a fortune stashed away against the likelihood of being sent down, not like Morris. You don't think about taking the bread out of the mouths of 4 little ones and my Patrick if Morris goes down, do you?
And why would it take the bread out of their mouths?
I knew it. I knew what you was getting at. You're all in league, aren't you? Well, let me tell you something. There's no need to send them snoopers round after me, asking the neighbours questions and that. I don't qualify for the stamp, and I never have. I don't need to pay the stamp, because all I get's a few pounds a week for helping out. That's all. And it pays for nothing at the end of the week, what with the prices in the shops and that. It's not a proper job at all.
So you're now saying that you do work?
Yes. Are you going to do me now? You're all alike. It's one morning a week, that's all. Just a couple of hours on a Tuesday morning, I go round to help out. For pocket money, that's all it is. I shouldn't have to pay a stamp and tax on that. It's ridiculous.
Mrs. O'Rourke, it is not our concern whether or not you pay a stamp or tax.
We'll forget about it then, shall we?
Do you understand the meaning of perjury?
Kinky, is it?
Perjury is lying under oath. You took an oath in this court to tell the truth, and the penalties for not telling the truth are severe. Now, you have already contradicted yourself, and if it happens again, the consequences will be very serious. Do you understand?
I didn't mean to be any trouble.
You're quite clear now as to what is expected of you.
Yes, you can trust me, Your Worship.
Proceed. Mr. Warwick.
I'm sorry, Your Honour. So, Mrs. O'Rourke, we have at last established that you do indeed work for Mr. O'Boney and Miss Smith.
Just a little. Not enough to qualify
For the stamp? No. And who pays you?
They do.
Which one of them?
Well, Morris usually. He's more often there than Janice. But it's both their money. You know, they share everything. He gets it from a tin on a shelf in the kitchen. That's where Janice puts the money for the food and that. The tin's marked Janice, and he has this joke about how he lives off Janice.
Why is that a joke?
Well, it's all engraved in that. The tin. You get it done in London. It's very fancy with her portrait engraved in it, and Janice in fancy writing. He's going to get one done for me with a picture of Prince Charles on it, and lots of love to Betty from Brian underneath. I don't know why he calls him Brian, but it always makes me laugh when I think about it.
A private eye reader.
I'm sorry, Your Honour?
Proceed, Mr. Warwick.
Yes, Your Honour. Now, Mrs. O'Rourke, what do Mr. O'Boney and Miss Smith do for a living?
Which one?
Well, let's take Miss Smith first. What does Miss Smith do for a living?
Nothing.
Nothing? Well, how does she live then?
She's on the Social Security.
She's on the Social Security, and yet she can afford a cleaner.
She's artistic. They both are.
Artistic?
She's been to college and everything, and her daddy's well off.
Well, what about Mr. O'Boney? Does he do nothing too?
He's artistic as well. He's a painter.
Have you ever seen him paint?
He doesn't do houses and things. He does pictures.
Well, do you clean the room where he paints?
No, I don't get as far as the spare room.
Oh, I see. It's hard work, is it?
Well, everything's hard work, isn't it? But we have a good laugh. The bedroom's the worst. There's that many mirrors.
What kind of mirrors?
All kinds of mirrors. Great big ones all over the walls, and those that stand on stands. They really need a window cleaner for that lot, they do. I've told them so.
Yes, and while you've been at the house on Tuesday mornings, have there been any visitors?
Once or twice.
Men or women?
Either.
Mostly men or mostly women?
Morris's friends mostly men.
Men. And when these men come to the house, what do they do?
It's none of my business.
But what have you seen when you've been there on a Tuesday? What have you seen them doing?
I don't see them doing nothing. It's none of my business. They go off into another room to have a chat in private, like.
Well, which room do they go off into?
I don't know. If I'm in the kitchen doing the ironing, they might be in the bathroom for all I know.
Have you ever seen any of them go into the bedroom?
No, I haven't.
And are you sure of that?
Well, I don't know, do I? I don't take any notice.
Who do they go off with, Mr. O'Boney or Miss Smith?
One or the other, it varies.
It varies. Due to what kind of circumstances?
I can't tell you, can I? It's none of my business. If I stuck my nose into other people's business, I'd never finish my work, would I? I don't know what goes on in the houses of all the people I work for, do I?
You say Mr. O'Boney is a painter. Now, have you ever seen him sell a picture?
Me? No.
Are you sure of that?
I'll just find my glasses.
Perhaps they will help you to answer the question, Mrs. O'Rourke.
Well, you think straighter with your glasses on, don't you find? Oh, dear, I must have left mine by the wash basin. These are our Maureen's. Still, never mind, they'll do. It's a similar case, you see. There, that's better. Now, where were we?
Are you sure you have never seen Mr. O'Boney selling a picture?
Well, there was one Tuesday morning when I was there. A gentleman called. I think he'd come to buy a painting, now I come to think about it. Morris was pleased with the money and he put it in the Janus tin.
How much?
£25.
£25. Yes, I see. And did you see him leave with the painting?
No, I didn't see him go. Janice went with him to get it and that. And Morris and I had a cuppa to celebrate.
How long were he and Janice away?
Oh, no time at all.
How long is no time at all?
Just enough time for a cuppa.
And the price was only £25.
Yes, well, he didn't want any extras, do you see? Just straight, he said. So I don't imagine Janice even wrapped it up for him. Wrapping paper being what it is.
Yes, thank you very much, Mrs. O'Rourke. I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honour.
Shall I be going now?
No, not for the moment, Mrs. O'Rourke. Miss Miles?
I have no questions for this witness, Your Honour.
That is the case for the prosecution, Your Honour.
You may go now, Mrs. O'Rourke.
Thank you, Your Worship. What's all this about? He said I could go. He's not interested in the stamp, are you? You said so. This one's in league with the police.
Mrs. O'Rourke, will you kindly take a seat with the other witnesses for the duration of this case?
Well, how long do you think you'll be? I've got the tea and that to see to.
You will be back in time for tea, Mrs. O'Rourke. Now, will you please sit down quietly?
I call Morris Jeremiah O'Boney.
He doesn't know how long it takes to get the tea. There's one wants fish fingers, one wants baked beans, one wants a baked potato in its jacket, and there's meat and 2 veg for Patrick.
You are Morris Jeremiah O'Boney?
I am.
And what is your address?
52B Richmond Road, Fulchester.
Do you live there alone?
I live with Janice Smith. We cohabit, as they say.
And what is your occupation?
I am a painter.
Do you earn your living that way?
No, I don't know of anyone who does, do you? The arts are not a very high priority in this country.
How do you live then?
On Social Security, the modern patron of the arts?
Have you ever sold a picture?
Yes, several, but not for anything more than pin money.
And how long have you been a painter?
All my life. I did what one laughingly calls train at St. Martin's College of Art in London, and I moved back to Fulchester last year.
How long have you known Miss Smith?
On and off for around 4 years.
And how would you describe your relationship?
Free, open, tolerant, creative.
What does that mean?
It means that neither of us is tied to the other except by our own volition. It means that we're not possessive about each other. It means that there are no jealousies, no petty restrictions. We understand each other and we live the way we want to live and not the way convention tells us we should.
Does the openness of your relationship also include its sexual aspects?
Of course. Our bodies are to be enjoyed. We enjoy them with each other and with other people. We don't own each other. The only duty we have is to enjoy life to the full. We are finding this a little difficult in Fulchester.
Why is that?
Well, all this, it's ludicrous.
But why ludicrous?
Look, if Janice really was a prostitute, that wouldn't be a crime in itself. But if I am living with a girl who happens to be a prostitute, all you have to do is to prove that she pays for the drinks and the rent, and I'm living off immoral earnings. It's sheer hypocrisy. You see my moral dilemma. If I rebut these ludicrous assertions one by one, I give them credence by implication. If I don't, I'll get sent to prison for something I haven't done and which I wouldn't even consider a crime if I had. It's a tricky one, all right? I'm compromised whichever way I turn.
The case of the Queen versus Morris O'Boney will continue in court tomorrow. The case you are about to see is fictional, but the procedure is authentic. The characters are played by actors, but the jury is selected from members of the public.
I think you'd better have a word with Miss Smith.
God. thought we discussed your presentation.
Oh, yes, so we did. Like it?
No, neither will the judge nor the jury.
Morris will love it. Brighten up his day.
You really must try and take this more seriously.
Oh, I do.
You promised me you would dress normally.
This is normal for me. What's your problem? You want me to prostitute myself to their expectations of our good girl dresses? Like her in a little black number?
At the very least, take off that ridiculous headband.
Okay. Well, it was worth a try. Here you are. A present for you. From a grateful client.
Can we turn now to the events of July the 4th, starting when you met your neighbour, Mr. Harley, in the front hall? What were you doing there?
We were going out early to have a look at the dawn on the river.
What time was this?
Well, much later than we hoped. We'd overslept. Must have been around 9 o'clock. We'd put some rolls and coffee in a bag, and we were going to have a morning picnic. Anyway, we got to the bottom of the stairs, and as I was about to open the front door, Janice accidentally brushed the bag against the KGB's door, and all hell broke loose as usual.
You've accidentally set off the alarm before.
No, not us. It's gone off when there's been nobody in the place, especially in windy weather. He changed it because the police complained about the times they've had to come round at all hours for nothing.
What happened after the alarm went off?
Well, as I was about to open the front door, in burst Andropov, aiming for the ankles and missing. He then went inside to disconnect the alarm, and we went back upstairs. He then came charging up the stairs after us, and he threatened us with a citizen's arrest.
What were his actual words?
I can't remember exactly. He was in such a state. I told him to sit down and have a cup of tea, but he wouldn't.
Mr. Harley told us that you said to him, "Look, Janice, an early customer." Is that true?
I can't remember saying anything like that at all.
And what happened then?
Well, Janice came out of the bedroom from hanging up her coat and tried to calm him down. She offered him a cup of tea as well. But he was still shaking, so I suggested he sat down, and Janice gave him a massage. Now, she is divinely brilliant at massage, but not the kind that he thinks.
How did he respond?
He went absolutely purple and stormed back down the stairs as though the Furies were after him.
Can we go on to talk about the other visitors to the house that day? The first visitor, according to W.P.C. Jones, was a middle-aged man of smart appearance. He entered the house with you at 11:25 and left alone at 11:50. Can you tell us who that was?
Yes, it was Janice's father. I met him on the street on his way over to give us the car keys. He was on his way to South America. He was going down there for about a year, and we were going to look after the car for him. Couldn't stay long, because just wanted to say hello to Janice and get back to finish his packing.
After lunch, you and Miss Smith returned at 2:45 with another man. This one was black and dressed in casual clothes.
Bloke we met in the pub. He came over for a coffee. Haven't seen him since. His name was Alan or George. Anyway, he came from Liverpool, and that's all we know about him.
And how about the third man who you brought to the house at 4:45?
Jimmy Spenton. We know him. He's outside waiting to give evidence. He's an art dealer. He came round to see my pictures. He's interested in my work.
Your Honor, perhaps this would be a good time to bring in the paintings. They're exhibits 3 and 4, but because of their size, they're not with the other exhibits, but stored outside the courtroom.
All right, then let's have them brought in. And what kind of style would you call this, Mr. O'Byrne?
Action painting.
Oh, action painting.
It has its roots in abstract expressionism.
Oh, I see. And do people pay you money? I mean, what sort of money do people pay you for this?
If you want one, Your Honor, you'd have to talk to Janice about this afterwards. She's my unofficial agent.
Miss Miles, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can we come now to the evening of July the 4th and the events which took place in the Salisbury Public House? What time did you arrive at the Salisbury?
Can't remember exactly, but 7:30, 7:45.
And was Police Cadet Fairbrother there when you arrived?
Yes, he and his mates were stuck in at the bar. Of course, when Janice walked in, they all clocked her and started nudging and giggling, as if they were on holiday from boarding school and had to prove they knew what a woman was.
Where did you sit?
At our usual table, not far from the door.
And who paid for the drinks?
Look, we share our money, what little we have. There is none of this your money and my money nonsense. Janice carries a purse, I don't.
When did you first notice Police Cadet Fairbrother?
Straight away.
Were you acquainted with him?
I'd seen him around from time to time, enough to know that he had a crush on Janice.
And could you describe for us the conversation which took place between you and Police Cadet Fairbrother?
Yes, I got up to get some drinks or go to the loo, and when I got back, Janice said something like, "I've trapped tonight, all right?"
She'd what?
Trapped.
What does that mean?
Pulled.
Pulled?
Made a conquest, Your Honor.
Oh, I see. Go on.
I looked over and saw a little friend blushing into his black and tan. I then complimented Janice on her taste. We were having a laugh about baby snatching. I caught his eye, and he weaved his way over to us.
Weaved or wove his way? Are you saying that he was drunk?
He was happy.
And what happened when he reached the table?
Oh, we sent him up. I told him that Janice was available if he played his cards right, and he looked as though he was let loose in a chocolate factory.
Police Cadet Fairbrother told us that you had asked him for money. Is that true?
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Look, it was a night out. We were in a good mood, and so was he. It was a joke. The minute he came over, he told us who he was and what he did. He found it as funny as we did. We were sending him up, and he knew it. It was all so insignificant at the time, and now all this happens.
Mr. O'Boney, may we talk now about your work as a painter? Let me see, how did you describe your style?
Action painting.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, perhaps you could explain to us what that is exactly.
It derives from abstract expressionism.
Pollock?
I prefer to think my roots were in Rauschenberg or Jasper Johns.
Really? Well, let's take Exhibit 3. Now, could you describe to us how you painted that?
Fair enough. My interest is in the form and movement of the human body and its interaction with the inanimate. In this case, the canvas. So, my painting is in 2 stages. First of all, I roll the paint onto the canvas. My mental attitude is all important. Then, immediately the paint has saturated the canvas, I then take up a position on the work and adopt the physical style I am trying to create. This one is called angst.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. What do you mean you take up a physical position on your work?
Just that. The state of mind affects the tone and posture of the body. The pores react. This physical sensation transfers itself onto the canvas, interacting with the flow of the paint. Creation symbolizes a point of tension, a moment frozen in time.
You mean you roll around naked on the canvas?
Yeah.
And you call it art?
Yeah, I call it art, and so do a lot of other people.
Would you like to tell us about the other painting? What is that one called?
No, I would not. I am not going to discuss my work with a Philistine like you. No way.
Now, answer the question, please, Mr. O'Byrne.
He asked me whether I would like to talk about it. I said no. That was an answer.
He also asked you what it was called. Now, answer the question, please.
It's called breakfast. 2 words. Break, fast.
Why is it called that?
It's ironic that the breaking of the fast, which is what breakfast is, should be undertaken with something as ephemeral and insubstantial as cornflakes.
Oh, is that what those bits are?
Yes.
So what do? You throw cornflakes onto the paint and jump up and down on them?
No, the cornflakes were on me.
How do you get them to stick?
Honey?
So you don't seriously expect us to believe that anyone would pay money for rubbish like this, do you?
People have. More discerning people have.
Do you have any receipts?
Receipts? Now, what would I want with receipts? These are works of art, not building supplies.
Well, can you produce any buyers?
I would not demean them by asking them to pander to this nonsense.
Is your work on display in any gallery or exhibition?
What is this? I never said I was famous. Some of the world's greatest painters starved for years and never earned a penny. I am a painter. My duty is to pass on my vision of the world to the world, whether the world wants to know it or not.
It would appear not, wouldn't it?
Well, at the moment, it seems not, no. But my paintings, my works are about life.
You are Janice Smith?
That's right.
And you live at?
52B Richmond Road. the notorious 52B.
What is your occupation?
Well, I would really, really love to help you all out by saying I was a prostitute, but I'm afraid I'm not. Sorry.
Accident.
Moment.
But what occupation do you normally follow?
Oh, I've done all kinds of things. Worked in an art gallery, a photographer's assistant, model agency, dress designer, all kinds of things vaguely creative. You know, I'm very good at organising creative people.
What was your last paid employment?
Last thing, let's see. Yes, last year I worked in Ridley's art shop here in Fulchester for 6 months. Then I lost the job. Good ruse that, I still get the discount.
When did you lose the job?
April last year.
And what have you been doing since then?
Oh, nothing that's paid any money, but I've had a good time. You see, I take it on myself to be a kind of walking ray of sunshine. I just sort of spread a bit of the joy of living that people seem to have lost nowadays.
How long have you known Mr. Aboni?
Oh, forever. Soulmates we are, Morris and me. We have a lot of fun. And he's really good in bed. Really.
Miss Smith, I get the impression that you find these proceedings amusing.
Don't mind me, I find everything amusing.
Well, this is a serious matter, and I would be obliged if you would take it seriously.
The one doesn't exclude the other. Just because I'm amused by it doesn't mean to say I don't take it seriously. It's just my way. Do you like the paintings?
I beg your pardon?
The paintings, aren't they wonderful? Don't you just love them?
We are not here to appraise the paintings as such, Miss Smith.
Have you seen these paintings before, Miss Smith?
Well, of course, I was living with Morris when he painted them. That one, Angst, he did in June, and Breakfast must have been early July. They're not his best, actually, but they're wonderful, aren't they?
Can we come now to the events of the evening of July the 4th last year?
Oh, yes, the sweet little baby policeman, Mr. Fairbrother.
Did he speak to you at all?
Oh, yes, with his eyes. He has lovely eyes. Our souls communed across the crowded pub.
Miss Smith, we are more interested in your mouths and the words they spoke.
It was a silent communication for quite a long time. He was so shy. So Morris helped him out. He called him over and introduced us. I shan't tell you how Pinky went, because that would embarrass him. He told us he was a police cadet. I said that was all right, would still talk to him. I said I'd once had an affair with the chief superintendent. He said his was a woman. Terrific! I said, you have an affair with her, we can both say the same thing.
And how did he react?
Oh, he laughed. The prospect obviously amused him.
What happened then?
I don't know, I went to have a pee. When I came back, he'd gone over to join his friends. But he did manage a few little waves and winks throughout the rest of the evening.
What kind of waves and winks?
Oh, very friendly ones, like this.
So you're saying that you are not and never have been a prostitute?
No, nor a housewife.
What's that got to do with it?
Same currency of exchange, sex in return for money. I prefer transactions with a little more subtlety myself.
Where were you working in the summer of 1979?
Oh, that's years ago. I can't remember.
Well, let me refresh your memory. In the summer of 1979, you were working for the Marilyn Escort Agency of Mayfair. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, I'd forgotten about that. Yes, I was.
Was that one of your more subtle transactions?
Yes, it was, actually. I was sleeping with the boss. He put work my way. 50 quid a time for escorting young men to film premieres, city dinners and the rest of it.
What exactly was the rest of it?
Law Society dinners, May balls. If you mean did I sleep with any of them afterwards, the answer is yes, I did sleep with one of them. A barrister. Very dishy. I saw him a few times afterwards.
For money?
No, for very elegant dinners, a fridge full of champagne and a weekend in Paris.
Were you living with Mr. O'Boney at the time?
Oh, yes.
So you were sleeping with 3 men at the same time. One of them, Mr. O'Boney, for love, presumably, but the other 2 in return for favours and presents. In other words, for financial gain.
Not for financial gain, no. I'm promiscuous.
Let's go back to the day in question, July the 4th. Isn't it rather convenient that of all the visitors to your flat that day, only one can be traced?
He picked a bad day. Last Wednesday was like a madhouse.
See, your father conveniently goes off to South America for a year and is uncontactable. And you don't know enough about the second man who came back from the pub with you for coffee for the police to be able to trace him. What did you say his name was, by the way?
I didn't say. I can't remember. I didn't take to him all that much. He was chatting to Morris mainly.
He was chatting to Morris. And yet, Mr. Harley testified that while he was in the flat, the bed springs in your bed were squeaking.
Christ, does he keep a record?
He does indeed.
God, the old wire. Like to come up and watch, would you?
Miss Smith, I've warned you before about being facetious. You will desist from making remarks to other witnesses. Do you understand?
Yes, boss.
And one more remark like that, and you will be in contempt of court.
I'm obliged, Your Honour. What was there to watch, Miss Smith?
Me do my aerobic exercises. Partly on the floor and partly on the bed.
You do exercises on the bed?
Yes. And we drink tea on the bed, and we sit around and we chat on top of the bed. We use the bed like a sofa, especially when people come round to see Morris's paintings. He displays the paintings on the wall opposite the bed. Well, there are a lot of mirrors in there, you see.
Yes, we've heard about your mirrors, Miss Smith.
Oh, have you? The paintings are reflected around the room, and the available light is reflected off the mirrors. It's the best place in the flat to show them off.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Fenton?
I run a printing workshop, but I'm in the process of expanding into the art area. Personalised cards, posters, and a small exhibition area for local artists.
Can you remember how many times you've met Mr. Aberney?
I would say 3 or 4 times over the last year.
In what capacity did Mr. Aberney present himself to you?
As an artist.
And would you agree with that?
Well, I've seen most of his pictures.
Can you look at the pictures in the courtroom now and tell us if you've ever seen any of them before?
Oh, I've seen that one. I saw it on July the 4th of last year.
Can you tell us how that came about?
Yes, I was in my printing shop, which is on Broom Lane. It's not far from where Janice and Morris live. Well, later on in the afternoon, Morris called by for a chat. He invited me over to see a painting he'd just finished, which he was very pleased with. Well, I agreed, and we went round to his flat to look at it. It was that one, Angst.
And what happened while you were in the flat?
Well, Janice was there. We chatted, we had a cup of tea, and we looked at the painting. And that's all.
Where was the painting?
In the front room.
What kind of room is that?
Well, it's their bedroom. The painting was propped up against the wall opposite the window.
And where were you while you were looking at the painting?
I was standing in front of it, moving around the room to get a good look at it.
And where were Mr. Aberney and Miss Smith?
I think they sat on the bed, yes. Yes, they sat on the bed.
At any time while you were in that flat, did Mr. Aberney or Miss Smith suggest that you should go to bed with Miss Smith in return for money?
No, certainly not.
You're absolutely sure that no approach of a sexual nature was made to you?
I'm very certain, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Spenton. I have no further questions.
Mr. Spenton, do you consider yourself something of an art critic?
No, not really. I do have a certain amount of art training, but I would describe myself as an arbiter of public taste, really. I have to be aware of what sells, primarily.
Who will choose the paintings that you will display in your new gallery?
Well, I will.
On what criteria?
A mixture of my own taste and what I consider to be good work, even if it isn't to my taste.
So, in effect, you are acting as a critic. You are determining what is good and what isn't.
Yes, I suppose so.
What do you think of Mr. O'Boney's work?
Well, it's not actually my cup of tea.
Why is that?
Well, that's difficult to define, really, isn't it? It's just not the sort of thing I like.
Yeah, but even though it's not to your taste, do you think it's good?
I couldn't say whether or not it's good.
Well, you just said that you will show what you consider to be good work, whether it's to your taste or not. Do you consider it good work?
Well, no, not very. But that doesn't mean to say that someone else wouldn't like it.
No, but we're talking about you. And you don't consider it to be very good. I mean, would you think it's the sort of thing that anyone could knock up in a couple of hours?
I really couldn't say. I mean, it's just impossible to say. You could say that about anything you don't like. It's really not a very valid criticism.
How many of Mr. O'Boney's paintings have you seen?
4, I think.
4? But you said you'd seen most of them. Is 4 most of them?
Well, no, probably not. I don't know.
Would you say he's a prolific painter?
No, he isn't prolific, but then a lot of artists aren't.
But would you really regard him as a serious artist?
It's a very unfair question. It's very unfair.
Oh. Well, let's change the subject then. Have you ever slept with Miss Smith?
What?
Have you ever slept with Miss Smith?
I've already told you. No overtures of any kind were made to me by either Miss Smith or Mr. Aboney that day.
That day, yes. But have you ever slept with Miss Smith?
No. No, I'm very happily married.
I would remind you that you are under oath, Mr. Spenton.
Well, yes, I have, actually. Just the once. Some time ago.
How long ago?
Last summer, when she was working in the art shop.
Did she ask you for money?
No, absolutely not.
Was Mr. Aboney aware of the incident?
I don't know. It was a mistake. I mean, I didn't mean it to happen. It was a party, too much to drink. It was an accident.
Did she or Mr. Aboney indicate that to you that you owed them some kind of favour in return?
No, nothing like that. I was the one who felt guilty.
Oh, you felt guilty. Is that why you've been trying to help Mr. Aboney by taking an interest in his work? Because you felt guilty?
I suppose that's part of the reason.
Is that why you came to court today, prepared to testify for a man whose talent you evidently doubt and whose commitment you're not sure of in your own mind?
I feel a sense of responsibility towards them, yes. But it's not up to me or you to doubt his commitment.
Oh, I think it is, Mr. Spenton. See, I put it to you that you know full well that Mr. O'Boney's work is pure rubbish, a hastily knocked-together cover for his real activities. And you know full well what's going on.
That's not true. Look, if he was living off her immoral earnings, don't you think he'd be a lot better off? With her face and figure, he'd be earning a fortune. Not scratching along on Social Security, he'd be loaded.
Oh, I'm not saying he does it well, Mr. Spenton. I'm merely suggesting that he does it. And that's quite enough as far as the law is concerned.
Now, this charge was brought under the Sexual Offences Act of 1956, Section 30, which states that it is an offence for a man knowingly to live wholly or in part on the earnings of prostitution. And for the purpose of this section and this case, a man who lives with a prostitute shall be presumed to be knowingly living on the earnings of prostitution unless he proves to the contrary. So, the prosecution's case falls into two parts. Was Maurice O'Bone living with Janice Smith? And secondly, was Janice Smith a prostitute? Now, if both these assertions are the case, then you must find Maurice O'Bone guilty as charged, and there is no need for the prosecution to prove that he controlled her movements in any way. If she is a prostitute, then he is presumed to know that, and by living with her is presumed to condone her behavior, and therefore is guilty as charged. As to the first part of the burden of proof, the defendant freely admits that he was living with Miss Smith. Therefore, all you have to decide is whether Miss Smith was a prostitute. Now, a prostitute is someone who habitually offers herself for sexual acts for payment. The payment is not necessarily money, but you must be convinced that whatever form that payment took, it was payment directly in return for sex. Now, will you please elect a foreman to speak for you and consider your verdict?
Members of the jury, will your foreman please stand? Please answer this question, yes or no. Have you reached a verdict on which you are agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Maurice Jeremiah O'Bone, you are free to go.
All stand.